I like to think of Gemini as a tech company that enables the acceleration of our clean energy transition. My name is Dr. Anthony Kinsler II. My PhD is in energy efficiency analytics. I did my master's and PhD at Stanford University. I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, grew up in Baltimore, Maryland primarily. I love sports, I love books, in particular sci-fi and fantasy, and I feel truly blessed. I get to wake up every morning and do what gives me purpose in life, which is be founder and CEO of Gemini Energy Solutions. What we do is we develop technology to create job opportunities for those who historically have not been able to work in the clean energy space. A lot of companies out there try and create technology that improves the efficiency of highly technical individuals, right? Folks who are already working in the space, how can we make them work better, faster? So if a technical person can do 1 building a week, maybe now with this software they can do 5 a week. We think about it from a different perspective. We say, how can we make it so that people who don't have technical skills can do that same type of work? So what we've developed is technology that simplifies the technical work so that people without technical skills can then do that work in the communities that they already live and serve. We pride ourselves in looking to have diverse customer base because we believe that the more people who are adopting energy efficiency, the more it'll spread to those around them. This idea of the folks closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. So how can we bring money to them, not by giving them grants, but by their ownership of clean technology, generating revenue for them to put back into their community. For us, we're working from a standpoint of, I think, 3 major metrics: jobs, revenue generated in that community, and greenhouse gas reductions. At Gemini, we focus primarily on small commercial buildings, and what people don't realize is small commercial buildings make up over 90% of the commercial building stock, and they consist of anchors of the community, small businesses, faith-based organizations, nonprofits, and community centers. So our customers are individuals who energy efficiency, climate is not a high priority in terms of their business, maybe in their personal lives, but not in their business. They often don't have the capacity or technical background to do this work themselves. And so what we provide is information. What we provide is an ability for them to understand how they can make better business decisions around the operation costs of their business or their nonprofit or their church or their synagogue, so that they can understand, so they can make actions around that. I should also add that the technology that we developed to serve small commercial we call Conserve. And Conserve simplifies the data collection process, it automates the analysis process, and it produces 2 types of reports. The first report is an energy audit, which looks at the energy saving opportunities within the building, HVAC systems, lighting, water heating, etc. And the other report is a microgrid feasibility study, which looks at not just an energy audit, but also solar, battery energy storage, and EV charging, and how that technology can be implemented within that site. For me, design is interaction. And good design means that the interaction produces the desired change or desired results. So when I think of kind of the interaction that we have at Gemini, that could be the interaction of folks from the community who are using our technology. Folks who have high technical skills, folks who have low technical skills, right? Does it allow them to easily work with it and produce the right results with little error? I think it is critical for us to think through how we design our technology, how do we design our interactions. So for us, it comes full circle that design is critical in everything we do. When I think about what inspires me to start this company, first I think back why starting a company was even reasonable as an option. And there's three people that I really credit for that. The first is my mom, who, as long as I can remember, always had her own business in addition to working 40 hours a week. She felt it was important to do something that she loved in addition to her work, right? And so even though she passed when I was 18, my whole life from that moment, I remember her having her own side business and doing that. And then when I went out to Stanford and I was in California, two people that really influenced me was Glenn Singleton, who's owner of Courageous Conversations and author of Courageous Conversations About Race. He really just made it really clear that like doing business and being able to do what you love is possible. And then the last person was my San Francisco mom, Shotzi Allen Jefferson, second generation Black woman, runs a construction management firm in the Bay Area. I worked there for 5 years while I was doing my master's and PhD, and just seeing Glenn and Shotzi and how they operated and what they did made it seem so reasonable to do your own business. The reason my business I chose to do was Gemini was actually for two reasons. The first was the feeling of isolation and loneliness, being one of the only Black people in the space, whether it be in school or when I go to conferences. Within the energy efficiency space, there was very few people that looked like me. And I, being a product of HBCU, I knew there were people who looked like me who cared about this stuff, but for some reason they weren't there. And the second reason was being at Stanford, you had a great opportunity to engage and talk with founders and recent founders, and two insights came from that. First was that their business model did not require interaction with communities of color for them to be successful. And I felt like that was fundamentally problematic. And second was that if their business was successful, it still didn't bring about the future that I thought that we needed. And for me, when I think about addressing climate change, it's not just about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's about bringing economic security, addressing wealth disparities, addressing health disparities that we have in this country. And so I look at solutions at the intersection of climate change and community empowerment. And it became very clear to me if I wanted to do that type of work, I had to start my own company. When I think about challenges around my customer base, because we're so diverse, you'll hear from a lot of politicians, we have more in common than we have differences, right? And I agree with all that. And our cultural differences, our cultural context really play a significant role in our decision making, right? There's so many benefits to clean energy. So which benefit, which attribute do you highlight for which community, right? Is it the health benefits or is it the energy saving benefits, right? Depending on the cultural context, highlighting the wrong one can actually reduce your effectiveness in engaging with them. How do you talk about your work to different communities? That changes based on cultural context. And so I think the challenge for us is navigating that and recognizing the importance of that, which I think is something that is really undervalued in our space. I think there's two skills that are underrated within the climate space. The first is empathy. The second is historical context. I think there's a lack of understanding walking into someone else's shoes, for instance, right? This idea that you look at a small business owner and you're trying to come up with a solution that's going to serve them. And to date, most of the solutions has been focused on a highly technical person going to that space, charging a lot of money to just tell them what the energy saving opportunities. And the cost of that is prohibitive for a lot of these organizations. So empathy and understanding, does the solution that you're developing, right, that maybe you're using for a large complex building that's 200,000 square feet, does that solution actually work with a 15,000 square foot community center? And so like thinking through the people behind that and the people who are running that that entity. The other aspect is historical context. How did we get to where we are, right? I would say most people in the climate space and business folks in the climate space didn't know what redlining was, didn't know, and couldn't tell you how redlining in the 50s, 60s, 70s impacted the building stock today, and how understanding that should adjust how they think about solutions within these different communities from a financial standpoint, from a technical standpoint. And so having the historical context, Jim Crow South to civil rights to like all these things matter from an energy perspective, but we in the climate space often disregard that, and I think that's a mistake. I think our biggest constraint is the lack of belief that communities of color, that historically marginalized communities, that low-income communities have both the desire and the potential. And as a result, there's a lot of perceived risk. There's obviously risks, a true risk, but there's also a lot of perceived risks that are preventing us from moving at the pace that we would like to move at. If we didn't have those, or if we had ways around that, I think we would see dramatic increases. By our goals, for instance, by 2030 is to see over 4,000 jobs created, $4 billion of revenue annually being generated within these communities, and hundreds of thousands of metric tons of carbon emissions avoided each year. So we have some really lofty goals over the next 5-6 years, and we're hoping that the first examples of our work with energy audits are examples of our work with microgrids and clean energy hubs. It gives us that evidence to persuade others that we're worth taking a risk. So I like to think of Gemini as a tech company that enables the acceleration of our clean energy transition.
You know, one of the things that's so cool about doing this work with these films, we've been learning all these additional layers of the ways that other people who aren't designers are thinking about design.
Yeah.
Design is innovation. Design is expansion and inclusivity.
Everything is design, but not everything is design with intent. Being really thoughtful and looking at the context from like 30,000 feet up makes a huge difference.